Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. And today we are going to be talking about the power of apologies. So we talked about this at the end of the show last week a little bit, and I know that I really want to address some of the things that we brought up. And I don't know if it's okay with you, but the first one I wanted to talk about was the interpersonal addiction to being right.
Well, that's a possibility. When we're talking about personal development, personal growth, anything with human development or psyche, we always want to speak in possibilities because we don't know if this is true or not. But you know, if you're open to possibilities, then there's a good chance that you can grow from it, learn from it. And so that's why I want to open it up with there's a good possibility that you could have some interpersonal addiction to something. And so what was your concern?
I guess I kind of wanted to admit that maybe that possibility is possible for me.
Okay, good.
Because and again, just speaking for myself, and I think by me admitting to it, it would also make people feel a little bit less bad about themselves or like
defensive.
Right. That it's not okay or anything. When it's just something that I do and something that I've acknowledged already, but I also pretend to not know sometimes. And I think for some reason I have this need to just always be right. Even when I know I'm wrong or I know that I might be wrong, sometimes I'll still fight to be right.
Now, what's cool about you saying that is you're creating a new awareness of you owning it and taking responsibility for it and putting light on it. You know, if you look at it as a chart, a growth chart from 0 to 10, maybe a week ago you were at level 3, and today just you saying it got you to level 4. Or a month ago you were at level 3, and then a week ago, you recognize it and you went to level 4, and now you saying it out loud and hearing yourself say it, you got to level 5. So it's cool that you are courageous enough and willing to be honest enough to look at yourself and say, hey, there's a good possibility that I do have this inner personal commitment that gets in my way of wanting to always be right about stuff, or even I might have this inner addiction to being in control of things, or I want to always be able to manage and manipulate stuff to have it look my way. And I think there's personal power in you just owning it and deciding it that there is a possibility and embracing it.
And it's funny that even as I'm admitting it right now, sometimes I can't come up with a reason to justify or validate or defend myself as to why I need to be right. So I guess it would be kind of easy if you're listening, to defend yourself and say, well, when I fight with my kid, it's because I'm the parent and I'm right. But there's really nothing that comes to mind as to why I need to be right. Do you know what I mean?
Well, what I like to do is sit with my clients and ask them questions like, what could be the payoff you're getting for it? Because we do things because we get some kind of a payoff. We get a goodie, and it's in the illusion of not knowing or not wanting to look at and recognize what is that goodie, what is that payoff that I'm getting that has me keep doing these same behaviors over and over again, especially when I know that they're not beneficial to me.
That's what I mean. So whatever my payoff is not worth it, I guess, anymore. Like I'm sitting here trying to think what I'm getting out of it, and all I can think of is the negative things that come out of it, like ruining those relationships or being in bad relationships over and over and doing the same thing over and over again. And those things are the things that are coming to mind. So the negative things overpower whatever payoff I'm getting, whatever goodie I get for being right.
But it's easy to say that. But in the moment.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
In the moment, you don't really care about, turning off a friend or, pissing off a relative or having somebody be mad at you for a temporary time, because in that moment it's almost like the ego needs self gratification and it needs its fix, almost like a druggie. It's like you all of a sudden in that moment when you need your fix, you don't care about anyone else, even though you say you love everyone and that their love and their friendship and and the relationship with them is important. In those moments right there, when you're arguing or when you're defending yourself in the heat of the moment, you don't care about any of that. All you really care about is you being right so that you can get that euphoria, get that rush. When you walk away, walking back down the hallway, to your room, you're walking up a little straighter. Your chest is stuck out and you're all puffed up going, yeah, I got him. There's something to be said about the possibility that you get some kind of a rush from it. You get some kind of a chemical addiction to whatever the brain is releasing in that moment, that you're walking away having the last word or taking a dig at someone or being sarcastic or whatever it is, that you won't just allow yourself to be vulnerable and really be willing to look at the situation and say, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe I don't, maybe there's a different way to look at it. Being open to have it look a different way in that moment is not what you're looking for. You're committed in that moment to having the way you see it be exactly the way you want it to be, no matter what.
So how does that affect, our topic today, the power of apologies? How does that affect my apology? And I think I kind of know, but I kind of also want you to tell me.
Well, I think that, for you, the next step is for you to that now that you're recognizing that there's a good possibility that you have an addiction to being right. And these are interpersonal addictions. But if there's that possibility, the cool thing about it is being conscious is just the awareness of it. So catch yourself, while you're in your room, maybe half hour later or hour later or half a day later or even a week later, to go back and clean that up. Go back to that person and say, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. And then when you get that person, seated down or if you isolate that person, it really takes just some honesty for you to kind of out yourself. Hey, you know what? Yesterday we were having a heated discussion and I realized that I was really fixated on being right about the way that I said it. And I know that that's not going to serve me moving forward in my relations in the future. And so what I want to do now is apologize for being so rigid with my beliefs and so heated with them. There was another opportunity for me to just allow you to have your opinion, let me state my opinion, and then we both agree to disagree, or we both, create a relationship where we can share our opinions and neither one of us gets to be right, and I could still hug you and we could still have an amazing relationship together. I think you just deciding that you want to have that kind of relationship is just valuable enough. And then when you flip that switch, then you can learn how to go back and clean those arguments and those, spats that you have with people and mend them.
And I have two topics that I wanted to talk about today as far as apologies go. And I think that I got a lot out of this and I hope that other people do too. But the one that really, I guess, bothers me or affects me a lot is when people don't apologize and they ignore it and they move on. And so I think a lot of people do that, or at least in my experience, a lot of people do that. And I have a hard time moving on when we haven't, talked about it or cleaned it up or anything. What do I do to people who don't want to have that conversation with me?
You force them to have that conversation. You decide that it's important to you, and if it's important to you, that's good enough, and it matters, and you matter, and your feelings matter, and then you make yourself go to that person and say, I need to have a conversation with you, and I need to let you know that what you said hurt my feelings, or this is how I took it. It might not be your intention to hurt my feelings, or it might not have been your intentions to say it like that, but however you said it, I interpret it in a way that was hurtful. And so I need to let you know that. And so I think you just being honest and letting people know what happened out of that conversation and how you created that gives them the opportunity to go, oh my God, I didn't even know that it bothered you, or I didn't know that you were upset. I think 90% of the times you are waiting for an apology and those people don't even realize that you were tagged or you got hurt or what they said, made that effect on you. So you have to take responsibility for communicating how you're feeling with people in those moments to give them the opportunity to say, wow, I'm so sorry that you feel like that wasn't my intention.
But couldn't I also, in the end, kind of just say, I don't need this apology?
Absolutely. There's a two phase. The first phase that I'm explaining to you is you learning how to be honest with your feelings and giving yourself permission to create that kind of relationship with the people you say you love the most. Then after you get good at that, in that process, you're going to decide, you know what? I don't even need to go and do this anymore. I can actually choose to get off it and create a new interpretation. And the new interpretation I'm going to create is, you know what? He's allowed to have his opinion. Or you know what? If that's how she feels, then that's how she feels. She's allowed to feel like that. Or, hey, you know what?Maybe I'm making up a bigger deal than it is. When I start to work with people, when I coach them at an advanced level, I help people take 100% accountability for all of their experiences, all their interpretations. So what I do is I have that person look at, could it be possible that the way you're hearing it, you're choosing to be hurt, to be offended by the words they're saying? And if that answer is a yes, then there's a good possibility that you can actually create a new interpretation that empowers you rather than has you feel disappointed or let down or hurt or affected in a negative way.
And so if the roles were reversed and I was the one who wasn't apologizing and I'm the one who thought it wasn't a big deal and I just wanted to move on, is that something that I should do situationally, like depending on the relationship? Like if they need an apology, then I should go out of my way and give them an apology?
I think in your awareness, you noticing a little bit more intently after a conversation, how they're showing up afterwards is important. Like if you and I have a conversation and you walk away, and then about 20 minutes later you're walking around the house, and if I'm really observant and aware and I'm watching you and I'm noticing that you're slamming things down, or then I can say, hey, are you okay? Or is it something I said earlier that upset you? Or so I think that you just noticing and being a little bit more aware about how other people are feeling and be just a good observer will give you a hint whether they got off it or got tagged or got upset by the conversation you had or something that you did. And then that would open up, now you can open up a new possibility to clean it up, or ask them, hey, that conversation we had 20 minutes ago, are you upset at me? Are you mad, or did I offend you? And then give them that opportunity to kind of respond to see where you need to go with it.
Right, because I think, every relationship I have with every individual person is different.
Absolutely.
And some I feel like I have to go out of my way extra, and that's okay. I understand that that's how they are, and that's what they need from me as a friend or, a relative or whatever. So I guess sometimes I feel like I'm making exceptions, and maybe I shouldn't be looking at it like that.
Exceptions in what way? It's okay if I don't get to her because this and that?
Well, I feel like let's say as an example for friends, if I'm closer to a friend and I understand that they don't need an apology, I don't need an apology, we just are going to move on because it was something that happened and we're over it, then we move on. Some friends need apologies. And so am I making an exception to go apologize to that friend because they need it? So I feel like sometimes I'm breaking, or I don't want to say breaking, or I feel like I'm being fake or not true to myself because that's not who I am, or that's not how most of my friendships are.
When you say that's not who I am, you're deciding that that's not who I am. But I'm not clear about what you mean when you say that's not who I am. Put a description in that box. When you say that's not who I am, that's not who I am, that goes and apologizes?
No, I'm saying if it's like a situation where they're really, what I feel like there is no apology. It was just an event that happened. It wasn't like anybody got their feelings hurt or anything. It was just an event that happened. So to me, I'm apologizing because somebody needs an apology. And does that make me fake if I go apologize because they need it?
It makes it fake if you don't have compassion for realizing that they need it and that they're on a different journey than you are. We're operating in our life at different levels of consciousness, and if they're at a lower level of consciousness, they can't see and interpret life the way that you do, or they can see an event as just a neutral event and it's got nothing to do with you, and you don't take it personal. They can't see it like that. They see it like it's really a threat. It's really a disrespect to me. You really hurt my feelings, yada, 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 yada. So they create all these stories about it, and it's real to them, and they're really going through that. And if you have any little part of being compassionate as a human being, knowing that they're struggling in that kind of a psychological dysfunction, then if you can tap into that compassion, then it's easier for you to go and apologize to them, not just because they need it, but because you co-created that with them. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
but if you don't want to be compassionate, you can easily go to your head and be righteous about it and go, hey, well, that's his or her perception. I was able to get off it. Why can't they? So it just depends on how you want to choose to show up in those scenarios.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think that crosses off all the things I wanted to talk about today.
It just clicked now and goes all the way down like a dominoes effect. What I really want to talk about is, some possibilities in and around the power of apologies. So I want to distinctively open up and really point this distinction that could it be that when you apologize, you help people get off of some resentments that they're holding on to, or some pain, or a hurt, or some rejection, and all the negative experiences that they created from either a conversation you had, or a scenario that you both were in, or a moment that you were co-creating. Could that person be really stuck? And can your apology, if you give it away, if you look at it as a gift, like this is my gift to you, is to find how I can own my portion of it and apologize, whether it was intentional or not, whether it was conscious or not. But I want to take ownership of my part in playing this, because I don't want you to be stuck holding on to resentments, pain, and all the rejection and all the negative stuff. So if you can look at the power of apology as being a gift that you can give somebody to help them get off of that emotion, I think that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, I think as far a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, I guess being compassionate is powerful, because you have to, even if you don't necessarily believe it, that again they need it, or they need this gift to get off of it, and you kind of have to put your pride aside and say, I'm sorry for the role that I played in this. Even if you don't necessarily feel that way, it's important to at least understand that that's where they're coming from.
And if you break down the distinction of compassion, the dictionary defines it as having sympathy for the suffering of others. And when you're in a relationship with somebody and they're stuck in some residual pain or resentment, and they're holding on to that, grief, and they're holding on to that negative energy, if you have sympathy that they're struggling and they're suffering in that pain and holding on to that energy, and you have a golden key that you can open the door and let all the stuff just come flowing out so that they can get off it, so they can heal from it, why would you hold on to that key any minute longer if you're a pivotal piece to helping somebody, especially somebody that you love most in your life? Why would you not use that key to crack the door open so that they can let all that stuff go?
Yeah, I think I don't imagine apologies that way. I don't see it in that light, because I don't experience them like that. So to hear somebody say that that's how other people, are experiencing them, it's kind of makes me a little bit emotional, because I guess I don't need apologies, and I don't hold on to them like that. And it's very unfortunate that some people do.
Well, it's just part of us as human beings, as we're growing and we're evolving, where we are unconsciously allowing things to happen to us where we get tagged. And when we get tagged, or when we get hooked, and those emotions are stuff that we hold on to, we need somebody to save us. We need someone to throw us a lifeboat or a life jacket. And what is most damaging is when parents do things, to their kids or around their kids, or involved with their kids, and their sons or daughters are interpreting it from their own self-limiting beliefs, and they're getting hurt, or they're being affected in a negative way. This is where, as a conscious parent, you recognizing that, and then sitting down with your son or daughter and saying, hey, in the conversation we had earlier, did I say something to hurt your feelings, or did you get offended by what we were sharing? And if your son or daughter's, struggles with that and kind of hints towards, yeah, I didn't like that this was said, or this is how I felt when we were having that conversation. Now that you're aware of that and you love your kids, right, more than anything in the world, why wouldn't you say, hey, look, I'm glad that I was able to reach out and find out that information from you, because now I can clean it up. But if you're totally unaware and unconscious, you just ignore it. And what happens is your sons or daughters are going to their rooms and they're creating more and more guilt and resentment and hatred and pain. And they're stacking it up inside their emotional tank. And then you're wondering why they're smoking weed when they're 15 or 16 years old. You wonder why they're talking back and they have bad attitudes, because their emotional tank is filled with resentment and negative emotions that are being created from, most likely, from family issues, from family relationships, from conversations that you guys are having in your home. And I think it's a powerful thing as a conscious parent is to be aware that that's going on and know that you have the key to go and create that opening, to open that door, to let all that stuff go so that they can cathartically heal themselves. Your kids need to be healed. They need that from you. And maybe the power of an apology coming from you makes the world of difference. And in the training rooms, this is what I'm hearing kids say. I wish my mom and dad would say, I'm sorry. I wish they would apologize once in their life. I wish they would just for one time just say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm sorry that that's how you feel. This wasn't my intention. Or, hey, I'm sorry that you feel like that. I too have felt like that before, and this is what I found out. Like just some kind of sympathy, some compassion, just a little bit, and you can make the world a difference.
I think that you're right. Most kids, I think most kids feel like they just want their parents to I'm not sure about the apology, but they want them to acknowledge that they play a part in the way things turned out for their kids. And one way to acknowledge it without blatantly saying it is to just apologize. And that would be enough. You know, you don't have to tell your kid, I acknowledge that I may have done this and this and this. All you have to do is apologize. And that's just enough for them. They don't want, you know, a big grand gesture. They just want an apology. And I think for parents, it's hard for them to apologize because they believe they're right, or they grew up with parents who never apologize, and they grew up believing you listen to your parents, they're always right. And that's not always right.
Yeah, there's a lot of dysfunctions that come, I think, from growing up in your own home and then you learning those things that now get in the way of your parenting. And if you're unconscious and don't realize how they're sabotaging your parenting relationship with your son or daughter and it's getting in the way, if you don't know, you don't know. But who does know is your son or daughter who's going into the room at night and they're crying themselves asleep at night because their emotional tank is so packed and so filled with stuff that's eating them up inside. It's clouding their spirit from knowing how amazing they are. It's getting in the way of like them really loving themselves and being worthy and all the great attributes that our spirit is there to guide us and remind us how truly powerful and amazing we are. All that resentment and negative energy from thousands of apologies that could have happened to help heal me as a kid are gone. And so now I'm slowly suffering as a child in my relationship with my parents because my parents don't know how powerful their apology can be to me.
It sounds great. We'll get more to it after the break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.